صلوات.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. یاسین والقرآن الحکیم انک لمن المرسلین علی صراط مستقیم تنزیل العزیز الرحیم لتنذر قوما ما انذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون والسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فأزلنا بصالح فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخلوا الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون ولقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشاء نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربه إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمهم إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في السور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم لقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره نكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند مهزرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناهم من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا نسي قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العظيم صلوات Please recite a Surah Fatiha for the Isar Sabab of Mohsin Sheikh Ibn Asif Sheikh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عن جابر بن عبد الله أنصاري أنه قال عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أن قال دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعوذك بالله يا أبتاه من ضعفي فقال يا فاطمة ائتني بالكساء اليماني فغتني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلالأقنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمة فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أماه إني أشم إنك رائية طيبة كأنها رائية جدي رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم إنك رائية طيبة كأنها رائية جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختار الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء وقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافي أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم إنك رائية طيبة كأنها رائية أخي وابني أمير رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخليفتي وصاحب اللواء قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتأت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بذأتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء فلم اكتمل جميعا تحت الكساء. أخاذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومأ بيدي اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء الأهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويؤذنني ما يؤذنهم. أنا هرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن آداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فجل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطاهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على آل محمد. وقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت السماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدهيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال أمين جبرائيل يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت نبوتي ومعدن رسالتي، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. علي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سما مبنيا ولا أرضا مدهيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا لأجلكم محبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنهم نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما على جلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال نبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم ورحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلا أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذ والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال نبي الثانية يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه اللهم صل على محمد وعلى وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيه محموم إلا وفرج الله حما ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غما ولا طالب حاجة إلا وكذا الله حاجته. فقال علي إذ والله فزنا واسودنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا واسودوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى
پر محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
صلوات. چلا جو خیم سے مرنے رسول جیسا پسر تو پیچھے پیچھے یہ کہتے ہوئے چلے سرور مر مر کے مجھے دیکھتے جان علی اکبر مر مر کے مجھے دیکھتے جان علی اکبر کچھ دیر تو جی لے تیرا کچھ دیر تو جی لے تیرا بابا علی اکبر مر مر کے مجھے دیکھتے جان علی اکبر مر مر کے مجھے دیکھتے جان علی اکبر تم زی سے گرو گے تو بدل جائے گی دنیا مقتل کی طرف کون ہمیں لے کے چلے گا قاتل تو بتائیں گے نا قاتل تو بتائیں گے نا رستہ علی اکبر مر مر کے مجھے دیکھتے جان علی اکبر مر مر کے مجھے دیکھتے جان علی اکبر بیمار مدینہ کی خبر آتی ہی ہوگی تم ساتھ لیے جاتے ہو بیمار بیماری میں کیسے پڑھوں گا خطے میں کیسے پڑھوں گا خطے صغریٰ علی اکبر مر مر کے مجھے دیکھتے جان علی اکبر مر مر کے مجھے دیکھتے جان علی اکبر صلوات.
میں درخواست کروں گا مرثیہ اسلام کے لیے جناب افضال حیدر صاحب سے تشریف لائیں پر محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
ایک دفعہ اور صلوات بھیج دینا. جہاں میں ثانیے قرآن کوئی کتاب نہیں، جہاں میں ثانی قرآن کوئی کتاب نہیں، ولی بھی ایک ہے ان کا کوئی جواب نہیں، علی بھی ایک ہے ان کا کوئی جواب نہیں، اور لحد میں پھیل گیا، لحد میں پھیل گیا بوتراب کا جلوہ، خدا کا شکر ہے مٹی میری خراب نہیں، وہ لحد میں پھیل گیا بوتراب کا جلوہ، خدا کا شکر ہے مٹی میری خراب نہیں۔ صلوات بھیجیں نا۔ ایک سلام حضرت اکبر کی شان میں، اس کے بعد ایک مختصر بند بھر دیا گیا آپ لوگوں نے۔ او شہنجاہ رہے ہیں لاشے اکبر پہ یا علی، اکبر پہ یا علی، یہ کیسا وقت آ گیا سرور پہ یا علی، سرور پہ یا علی، شہنجاہ رہے ہیں لاشے اکبر پہ یا علی، اکبر پہ یا علی، اور کچھ سوجھتا نہیں مجھے ہے میرے نور عین، ہے میرے نور عین، بولے حسین لاشے اکبر پہ یا علی، اکبر پہ یا علی، اور دنیا سیاہ ہو گئی نظروں میں شاہ کے، نظروں میں شاہ کے، نیزہ لگا جو سینہ اکبر پہ یا علی، اکبر پہ یا علی، اور کیوں کر کہوں کہ رخصت اکبر کے بعد سے، اکبر کے بعد سے اڑتی تھی خاک خیمہ سرور پہ یا علی، سرور پہ یا علی، او زینب تڑپ کے گر پڑی جلتی زمین پر، جلتی زمین پر خنجر چلا جو گردن سرور پہ یا علی، سرور پہ یا علی، وہ شہجا رہے ہیں لاشِ اکبر پہ یا علی، اکبر پہ یا علی، اور پانی کہاں سے لائے جو تربت کو تر کرے، تربت کو تر کرے، روتے ہیں شاہ تربت اصغر پہ یا علی، اصغر پہ یا علی، بعد حسین کوفہ سے بازار شام تک، بازار شام تک دروں کے بار عابد لاغر پہ یا علی، لاغر پہ یا علی، شہنجا رہے ہیں لاشِ اکبر پہ یا علی، اکبر پہ یا علی، یہ کیسا وقت آ گیا سرور پہ یا علی، سرور پہ یا علی، صلوات بھیجیں جناب بھائی۔ ایک سورہ فاتحہ پڑھ دیں، مرحوم محسن شیخ ابن آصف شیخ کی اور دیگر مرحومین کی۔ جی ہاں بالکل۔ بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ صلوات بھیجیں۔ لاش اکبر کی جو مقتل سے اٹھا لائے حسین، نوجوان کو صفِ اول سے اٹھا لائے حسین، چاند کو شام کے بادل سے اٹھا لائے حسین، جاں بلب شیر کو جنگل سے اٹھا لائے حسین، جاں بلب شیر کو جنگل سے اٹھا لائے، اور دی صدا لاش پسر آن کے لے جا بانو، چھد گیا برچی سے اکبر کا کلیجہ بانو، چھد گیا برچی سے اکبر کا کلیجہ بانو، دیکھ لے آخری دیدار پسر مرتا ہے سامنے آنکھوں کے یہ نور نظر مرتا ہے اب کوئی دم میں تیرا ریش کے قمر مرتا ہے منہ سے باہر ہے زباں تشنا جگر مرتا ہے منہ سے باہر ہے زباں تشنا جگر مرتا ہے اور دم ہے سینے میں رکا زخموں سے خون جاری ہے ہائے بانو تیرا گھر لٹنے کی تیاری ہے ہائے بانو تیرا گھر لٹنے کی تیاری ہے اور پہنچی خیمے میں جو حضرت کی یہ پردرد صدا مضطرب ہو گئی ناموس رسول دوسرا اور کہا چلا کے سکینہ نے کہ ہائے ہائے بھیا اور فضا دوڑی سوئے در پھینک کے سر پر سے ردا فضا دوڑی سوئے در پھینک کے سر پر سے ردا اور پیٹتی زینب مضطر نکل آئی باہر اور بانو گھبرا کے کھلے سر نکل آئی باہر منو گھبرا کے کھلے سر نکل آئی باہر شاہ کے کاندھوں پہ دیکھا لی اکبر کو نڈھال ہاتھ پھیلا کے یہ چلائی کہ ہائے ہائے میرے لال او کیا غضب ہو گیا اے بادشاہ نیک خصال راس آیا نا میرے بچے کو 18واں سال راس آیا نا میرے بچے کو 18واں سال اور ٹکڑے تیغوں سے بدن ہو گیا سارا ہائے ہائے کون تھا جس نے میرے شیر کو مارا ہے ہے کون تھا جس نے میرے شیر کو مارا ہے رو کے بانوں سے یہ فرمانے لگے سردردی سر نہ پیٹو ابھی زندہ ہے میرا ماہ جبیں سانس آتی ہے پر ہر دم ہے دم باز پسیں اور کوچ ان کا بھی ہے اور ہم بھی ہیں مرنے کے قریب کوچ ان کا بھی ہے اور ہم بھی ہیں مرنے کے قریب اور سب چھٹے اب نہ رہا کوئی ہمارا بانو اس جوان بیٹے غم نے ہمیں مارا بانو اس جوان بیٹے کے غم نے ہمیں مارا بانو لاش اکبر کی جو شکریہ جناب
مومنین جزاک اللہ جناب افضال حیدر صاحب مرسی السلام پیش کر رہے تھے ان کی توفیقات کے لیے ایک بلند ترین صلوات پڑھ دیجیے آپ تمام لوگوں سے درخواست ہے کہ ایک مرتبہ سورہ فاتحہ اور 3 مرتبہ سورہ قل پڑھ کر جناب محسن شیخ ولد آصف شیخ کی روح کو اصحال فرما دیجیے ایک سورہ فاتحہ سینٹر کے بانیان کے تمام حاضرین کے اور ملت کے وہ تمام شہداء جن کا کوئی پڑھنے والا نہیں ہے، مختلف ممالک میں جو مومنین مومنات شہید ہو رہے ہیں، ان سب کے اس حال کے لیے ایک فاتحہ فرما دیں۔ چند مصروں کی زحمت دوں گا، زیادہ ٹائم نہیں لوں گا۔ کربلا ملک نہیں، قوم نہیں، شہر نہیں۔ کربلا ملک نہیں، قوم نہیں، شہر نہیں۔ کربلا چشمہ عرفاں ہے، فقط نہر نہیں۔ کربلا چشمہ عرفاں ہے، فقط نہر نہیں۔ کربلا جبر نہیں، ظلم نہیں، قہر نہیں۔ کربلا فرقہ پرستی کی کوئی لہر نہیں۔ کربلا فرقہ پرستی کی کوئی لہر نہیں۔ کربلا دہر میں ہر دین کا سرتاج ہوئی۔ کربلا دہر میں ہر دین کا سرتاج ہوئی۔ عرش والوں کو اسی فرش پہ معراج ہوئی۔ عرش والوں کو اسی فرش پہ معراج ہوئی۔ اسی بلندی سے ہے تاریخ امنگ بھی باقی۔ اسی بلندی سے ہے تاریخ امنگ بھی باقی۔ ذکر باقی ہے تو ہر دیدہ نم باقی۔ شہداء آج بھی باقی ہیں، علم بھی باقی۔ شہداء آج بھی باقی ہیں، علم بھی باقی۔ ہے محمد کی جوانی کا حشم بھی باقی۔ دامن فکر میں گو بغض علی بنتے ہیں۔ دامن فکر میں گو بغض علی بنتے ہیں۔ لوگ پھر بھی علی اکبر کی اذاں سنتے ہیں۔ لوگ پھر بھی علی اکبر کی اذاں سنتے ہیں۔ کلمہ گوئی تو ہے فرض مسلماں کے لیے۔ کلمہ گوئی تو ہے فرض مسلماں کے لیے۔ شرط تقوی کی مگر سخت ہے انسان کے لیے۔ شرط تقوی کی مگر سخت ہے انسان کے لیے۔ لاکھوں لے آتے ہیں ایمان سپر جاں کے لیے۔ لاکھوں لے آتے ہیں ایمان سپر جاں کے لیے۔ جان لاکھوں میں کوئی دیتا ہے ایمان کے لیے۔ اور آخری مصرع جو بہترین مصرع ہے کہ سونے چاندی سے تو قرآن سبھی نے لکھے۔ سونے چاندی سے تو قرآن سبھی نے لکھے۔ خون سے کلمہ حق فقط سبت نبی نے لکھا۔ میں درخواست کروں گا جناب کاظمی صاحب سے کہ تشریف لائیں پر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔
ایک بار پھر بآواز بلند صلوات پڑھیں۔ بڑی شارٹ نوٹس پہ مجھے کہا گیا لیکن کوشش میں کرتا ہوں کہ پراپر طریقے سے پڑھ سکوں۔ ایک بار بآواز بلند صلوات۔ جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے۔ جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے۔ پھر اس کو خیمے میں لانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے۔ جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے۔ حسین سینہ اکبر سے کھینچ لیں گے سنا، حسین سینہ اکبر سے کھینچ لیں گے سنا، سینہ جگر سے چھڑانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، کیا ہے تیر سے اصغر کو ذبح ظالم نے، کیا ہے تیر سے اصغر کو ذبح ظالم نے، یقین ماں کو دلانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، زخم اتنے سکینہ کے جسم پر سجا ہے، زخم اتنے سکینہ کے جسم پر سجا، بدن سے کرتا چھڑانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، کہاں یہ صغیران عابد نے زخم اتنے ہیں، کہاں یہ صغیرہ سے عابد نے زخم اتنے ہیں، تجھے گلے سے لگانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، علی کی بیٹی کو آتی ہے شرم شوہر سے، علی شرم شوہر سے نشاں رسن کے دکھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے۔ تیری کریمی ہے سجاد گھر میں قاتل کو، تیری کریمی ہے سجاد گھر میں قاتل کو، بلا کے کھانا کھلانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے۔ نوخوانوں پہ یہ ہے بی بی کا کرم فرحان، نوخوانوں پہ ہے بی بی کا کرم اے کاظم، ورنہ یہ نوح سنانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، پھر اس کو خیمے میں لانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے، جواں کی لاش اٹھانا بہت ہی مشکل ہے۔
اچھا پلیز ڈاکٹر صاحب اناؤنسمنٹ کرنا چاہتے ہیں اور محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔
I just want to remind you that the month of Rajab is, inshallah, will start in about 2 days. The Jashan for the Milad of Imam Ali's Wiladat on the 13th of Rajab will be held here at Baitul Qayem on Sunday the 12th of January at 2 p.m. It's Sunday the 12th of January at 2 p.m. Maulana Muslim Chawla will be with us on that day, inshallah. And then those few who will be keeping the fasting roza, there'll be iftar served after the Jashan, inshallah. So that's Sunday the 12th of January at 2 p.m. here at Baitul Qayem, inshallah. Thank you. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for Mohsin Sheikh Ibn Asif Sheikh.
قبلہ کو زحمت دوں گا 4 مصروں کے ساتھ کہ غلام فاتح بدر و حنین لکھ دینا، غلام فاتح بدر و حنین لکھ دینا، या सोगवारे शहे मशरक़ैन लिख देना, या सोगवारे शहे मशरक़ैन लिख देना, अगर मेरी तमाम वसीयत न याद रहे तो, अगर मेरी तमाम वसीयत न याद रहे तो मेरे कफ़न पर फ़कत या हुसैन लिख देना। अली अली। मैं दरख्वास्त करूँगा या अली, मैं दरख्वास्त करूँगा ज़ाकिर अहले बैत क़िबला जनाब हुज्जतुल इस्लाम बिलाल शेख साहब से कि तशरीफ़ लाएँ, मेंबर अफरोज़ में। एक और बुलंद तरीन सलावात क़िबला की सेहत और सलामती के लिए पढ़ दीजिए।
रहमल्लाहु मन यक़रा सूरतुल फ़ातिहा। अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। रब्बि इश्रह ली सदरी व यस्सिर ली अमरी वहलुल उक़दतम मिन लिसानी यफ़क़हू क़ौली। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन, सुम्मस्सलातु वस्सलाम अला सय्यिदिना व नबिय्यिना व हबीबि इलाहिल आलमीन अबिल क़ासिम मुहम्मद वअला आलिहि अत्तय्यबीन अत्ताहिरीन अल-मासूमीन वल्लअनतु अला अअदाइहिम अजमईन मिनल आन इला क़ियाम यौमिद्दीन। अम्मा बअद फ़क़द क़ाल अल्लाहु तआला फ़ी मुहकम किताबिहिल हकीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। वज़्कुर अब्दना अय्यूब इज़ नादा रब्बहु अन्नी मस्सनियश शैतान बिनस्बिन व अज़ाब। आमन्ना बिल्लाहि सदक़ल्लाहुल अलियुल अज़ीम। Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And your loudest salawat for ta'jeel faraj sahib al-asr wa zaman. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In Surah Sa'd, verse 41, Allah reminds us and He mentions that He says, and remember, Abdina, our servant, Ayyub. And when Ayyub called out, "Oh Allah, certainly shaitan has afflicted me, massani bisu, and caused me affliction and difficulty." This verse is an interesting verse about what's the discussion. Let me explain why it's interesting. Many people, when they look at this verse, they remember the story of Nabi Ayyub. In Nabi Ayyub's story, famously, he was a very wealthy man with a lot of resources and a lot of good things that he possessed in his life. He had many children, he had much wealth, and he was a pious and good servant such that there was no one in the entire district of where he lived that they would ever be in poverty except that Ayyub would take care of them. Possessed every kind of goodness that he could have. And he did everything correctly with it, he did everything right. And there came a point in time where Shaitan complains to Allah about Ayyub. And he complains to Allah about Ayyub. He says, "Oh Allah, this servant of yours does good things because you give him good things. If you took away all of his good things, he wouldn't be so good anymore." So Allah then afflicts this prophet Ayyub, and all of his wealth in an instant disappears. And all of his children instantly die. It's narrated and said that lightning and fire struck his fields, all of his wealth and all of his animals died in that. In another event, that the house where all of his children would stay, the house collapsed, all of the children died. Nothing remained with Ayyub, to the extent where even his health that he possessed was gone as well too. And that he became incredibly sick to the extent where there's a debate. Some of the mufassirin, they say that he developed, na'uzubillah, leprosy. We say it's not leprosy, it can't be leprosy. Why? Because leprosy is a disease that can spread to others and cause pain in others, and a Nabi can only be a source of hidayah, can't be a source of causing affliction upon other people. But a severe disease affects Ayub and he loses his health. The consequence of this is that some people came forward and they said that this verse where it talks about that Ayub complains to Allah that certainly shaitan has afflicted me, it was these difficulties that he was blaming on shaitan. Other Mufassirin point to something else and they say, no, Ayub didn't doubt that whatever Allah afflicted him with was from Allah. Pay attention to this. The difficulties that befall Ayub in his life are not because of the power that shaitan has over Ayub. The difficulty that befalls Ayub in his life is only what Allah allows to happen to a person. Meaning, difficulty in life comes from Allah, not from shaitan. So which is why now the question comes, what is Ayub talking about? That shaitan, nasaba alayya, how did he create difficulty and affliction for me? For this, you have to understand what happens to Ayub when he goes through this difficulty. That shaitan, after Ayub is in this trial, his children have died, he's lost his wealth, he has no health. Now is when shaitan afflicts him by putting doubt in his heart that Allah has deserted you, that this is your fault, that you gave up and Allah gave up on you, that he turned the people against Ayub. For example, the Prophet of Allah, Ayub, Prophet of Allah, what did the people do? They came to this Prophet of God and they said, certainly you did something bad, O Ayub, that Allah did this to you. And the Prophet would turn and say to them, I have done nothing, but rather this is the trial from Allah that has befallen me. When the description comes that Ayub is saying that shaitan has afflicted me, it's not the fact that he lost his health that was shaitan. It's not the fact that he lost his children that this was shaitan. It's not the fact that all of his, everything of his possessions and statuses disappeared. No, this is a trial from Allah. And Ayub submits to that trial. The impact of shaitan was to create waswas and doubt in the hearts of people of the power and authority of Allah. That Allah is na'uzubillah vindictive. That Allah is na'uzubillah the one who doesn't care about his servant. That Allah punishes like this in this world. This was the attack of shaitan that Ayub is asking protection from. Ayub is not complaining to say that, oh, I lost my wealth, Allah, it's because of shaitan. Oh, Allah, I lost my children because of shaitan. No. The importance of this conversation about Nabi Ayub and why it's specific to understand what is it that Ayub is seeking protection with Allah from shaitan is not the physical impact that Ayub went through and that difficulties befell him, but rather that when he was going through the difficulty, the doubt in trusting in Allah that was created amongst him and his ummah and the people he was supposed to guide. Understanding this point becomes really important, because then why didn't Ayub complain about the fact that he lost all of his children, his wealth, and his status? If that's not what Ayub is concerned with. And Ayub is rather concerned with the fact that, do I still believe in Allah? Does my community that I'm to serve still believe in Allah? If we can understand this, that why was it that the problem that Ayub is complaining about, and this is the mistake that people make, they believe that Ayub's complaint is about loss of wealth and children and health. No. That's not what Ayub complained about. Ayub never complained about this. No prophet of Allah ever complained about this. As a matter of fact, the prophets of Allah would thank Allah for these difficulties. Forget them. Look at the example of Ahlul Bayt. In the most famous of cases that everyone can narrate and quote. كيف وجدت ما صنع الله بأخيك الحسين. When Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, the day after Ashura, 2 days after Ashura, brings Sayyidah Zainab for the first time, that dignified personality, stood in the court of the Dhalim, the most disrespectful and disgraceful circumstance that could be present. And that Dhalim turns to Sayyidah Zainab in the most oppressive and difficult of conditions. And he says to her, how did you find what Allah did to your brother Hussain? understand something. The fact that this man is speaking to Sayyidah Zainab, forget the fact that it's in a court. Forget the fact that it's in front of all of these people who are watching. Forget the fact that her family and her 18 brothers and relatives who were all killed, their heads are presented before them. Forget simply even the fact that what's narrated in Tariq, if you knew of the oppression that he showed to the head of Abu Abdullah before speaking to his sister, that we can't mention it. The Mu'arrikheen stopped their hands and said, we can't write the disrespect he showed to the head of Abu Abdullah. But that lady, in spite of all of this and the fact that one like that, remember Sayyidah Zainab is that personality that when she would want to go visit the grave of Rasulullah, they would turn out the lights on the street so that no one would see her walk to the grave of her grandfather, is now standing in front of this oppressor who is responsible for the murder of her family. How difficult a moment that is. Well, what's her answer? I did not see anything but beauty. This expression, this discussion, the position of Ayyub in not being frustrated by the difficulty that befalls him, is a perspective of how we should look at difficulties that befall us. Is a description and explanation of what is the proper perspective to see a problem, a challenge that you face in life, something that is deemed a hardship in life. How is it that we should be reacting to it? Why? Because there is a material perspective and then there is a spiritual or religious perspective. If you look at these trials in the face of a material perspective, that the goal of life is to possess, to have, and as soon as I don't have, I'm at a loss or I'm in a negative position, then all of these things are bad. What happened to Ayyub? Bad. What happened to Sayyidah Zainab? Worse. What happens to anybody who goes through a difficulty? We say, oh, he's suffering. Something bad has happened because I've measured his life in material aspect. And anytime I face a material decrease, it must mean something's wrong with me or something's bad. But if I look at this in the view of a spiritual aspect and understanding that the spiritual value of a human being is not associated with possession, but is associated with the status with Allah, then I have a completely different perspective and responsibility. What we imagine is that life's goal is possession, meaning that if my life is good, I have more and more and more and more and more. But if I have less, or it reduces, then I am bad. But these stories, and why Allah has saved these stories to be told to us, is a description to say that possession is not a description of good and bad. Rather, the absence of possession is good. Why? Take a look and see how Allah describes in the Holy Quran. وَمَا أَصَابَ مِن مُّصِيبَةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مِّن قَبْلَ أَن نَّبْرَأَهَا إِنَّ ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرٌ. Allah mentions in the Quran and He says that there is no calamity that befalls this earth, nor in yourselves, but that it is inscribed in the tablet before we bring it into existence. And certainly this is easy for Allah. Allah here is describing and saying that whatever calamity befalls you is from me. I am the one who puts you through trial and tribulation, gives you difficulty. And that the possession of that trial and tribulation and difficulty that you have in this life is because Allah has focused upon you and given you this trial and tribulation. Not that He has given you wealth, but that He has given you difficulty. If we wanted to understand why Allah is telling you that all of your difficulties, all of your hardships are from me, we need to look at this in the concept that difficulty serves a purpose. There is a benefit to a difficulty. There is a reason that difficulty exists. To understand this, you have to believe that Allah is just. When we say that, right, we go Tawheed, Adalat, Nabuwat, Imamat, Ma'ad, Qiyamat, we go through this list of things and we mention this Adalat, the singling out of adalat from all of the attributes of Allah and mentioning it from amongst the fundamentals of being a Muslim is very important. Allah is also Rahman. Why didn't we say Tawheed, Rahman, Nabuwat, Imamat? Allah is also Ghafoor. Don't we want His maghfirat? Don't we want His forgiveness? Also, Allah is also giving. Don't we want His giving? But of all of these attributes, we included adalat as being that you can't believe in Islam correctly without believing in His adalat. Because that adalat is central to being able to receive and to know that you will be rewarded. If that adalat was missing, you could do good all your life, do everything right, and Allah could still decide, I don't like the way you look, go to hell. But what? The adalat made sure that if my actions are good, then I'm definitely rewarded. I immediately knew that there's value to my life, that I was created with a purpose, and as long as I fulfill that purpose, I will be rewarded. But understanding that adalat also means that if I want a reward, I have to do something to earn the reward. What do I have to do to earn a reward? Here Allah is describing, if you want my reward, then show me what you possess in a difficulty. Show me what you would do and who do you actually worship in a state of difficulty. Allah's description here in saying that no difficulty in this earth or in yourselves befalls you except that I wrote it and prepared it for you is to tell you that tomorrow you want to go to heaven. How will you justify that you deserve to go to heaven? How will you prove that heaven is my right and I've earned it? Ya Allah, give me heaven. Why? What did you do? Who are you? What did you accomplish? What? You had an easy, comfortable life and what? Now you want more ease and comfort? You had a good time and now you want to have more of a good time? Why? Allah says for you to deserve that reward, you have to go through the difficulty now. And what do we realize? That, okay, if I need to answer a question to pass the test, the harder the question, the more the points that I earn with it. The greater the reward that I earn with Allah. Understanding this is why Ayub didn't complain when he lost his wealth. Ayub didn't complain when he lost his children. Ayub didn't complain when he lost his health. Rather, he understood that if I want a great reward in heaven, I had to give something up. Shaitan's attack was that when he lost all of these things, Shaitan tried to break the connection between Ayub and Allah. If in that difficulty, my connection breaks with Allah, why would Allah reward me? I failed the test then. Now look and see, same concept. Apply it to Sayyidah Zainab. The statement of Ubaydullah was to try and break her connection with Allah. That somehow complained that Allah put you through this. How did you find what Allah did to you? If the connection there had been weak between Sayyidah Zainab and Allah, she would have said, this is a great calamity that has befallen me. I am upset that I have gone through this difficulty. I am frustrated and angry with God that He took this from me. But she understands the depth of the connection with Allah, that the reward of Allah comes through trial, tribulation, and difficulty. And she understands that the greater the tribulation, the greater the difficulty, the greater the reward with Allah. So therefore the loss of a loved one didn't disturb her. The difficulties of Ayub didn't disturb him. But the one who tried to separate them from Allah is what was the problem. Now understand something, just because Allah indicates and He says every difficulty that befalls you is from me, doesn't mean that we should be careless with our life and do whatever we choose to. Why? Because, well, Allah, if He's going to test me, He's going to test me. Let me drive 100 miles an hour on the road, and well, if Allah wants to test me, whether I was driving 100 miles or 50 miles an hour, I was going to go through this test. No. Why? Because Allah balances this equation in another verse, and He explains, He says, وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَيَعْفُو عَنْ كَثِيرٍ. Allah brings another verse to explain, and He says, whatever misfortune befalls you, it is because of what your hands have earned. and He pardons many of the mistakes that you make. This statement of Allah is a balance. Allah creates a balance to give a complete explanation. In one verse, He's saying, everything that happens to you, I decided it for you. In another verse, He's saying, everything that happens to you is because of what you do. The balance between these two statements is to understand that I have consequences to my actions just as much as it is that the trials that Allah gives me. In our life, we face two types of difficulties. One is that difficulty that Allah has dictated for us. Whatever I do, it is a difficulty I will go through. The second type of difficulty is because of the decisions that I make in life. That if I make a particular decision, I will face its consequence. That the consequences have to be apparent. And this is what we talk about, that we say that both of these balance the type of difficulties we face in life. But the reward, Allah is so merciful that as He dictates that both of these are difficulties you'll face in life, these are the difficulties that Allah uses to test and see what is your iman in a state of difficulty. It's not to say that one is the test of faith and the other is you suffering for no reason. He says, no, I use both of these as a tool. Sometimes I will dictate your challenge, and sometimes you will bring a challenge upon you from the decisions that you make. But both of them retain the right of earning a reward with Allah. Both of them retain the right that they can be a catalyst for showing the character and the faith that we possess. It's important to realize when we look at this that we're talking about these calamities and these difficulties. This earth is not heaven. It's not meant to be heaven. It's not meant to be perfect. It's not meant to possess all these goodnesses. Why? Because here it is temporary. Here you have it for a while and then it dissipates. You have your youth and it's gone. You have your life and it's gone. You have your health and it's gone. The reward with Allah is that which is ever living, that Allah does not take away once He gives. Which is why we have to take that perspective that this place, earth, is a place of difficulty. The difficulties that Allah tests us with fit into more than one format, which is why He gives the explanation of how difficulty will befall us. He says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. This description, Allah says that when I want to give you a calamity for you to deserve heaven, what could that calamity be? Where would you see that calamity in your life? What are the things that you'll have to face against? And Allah says, I won't hide it from you. It won't come from somewhere else. When it comes from me and I have dictated it, then it is something that I will educate you about, so be prepared for them. Which is why He mentions, and He says that it will be from fear. It will be from hunger. It will be from loss of wealth. It will be through sickness in yourselves. And it will be through the loss of your children. That each of these is a phase of difficulty that we go through, and it's a calamity that we face. And the question is, what do we do in that calamity? One of the most apt descriptions of how important this is to understand this concept is when we lose a loved one. That even that losing of a loved one is a test for us. I'll explain. You guys okay? We have a few minutes, yes? So look, oh, the clock's closed. There we go. No, I don't know. When someone dies, until they are buried, there is nothing in the ahkam that is for the living. When you lose a relative, from the moment that they die till you finish their burial, nothing is about you. Nothing is about you. In the religion of Islam, from that moment until you bury that person, all of the responsibilities, the rights, the obligations are about the deceased. That what do they need? What is their priority? Not about us. Meaning that even when we talk about ahkam of Islam, when someone passes away, what do we say? Bury them as quickly as possible. Fulfill their rights right away. Give up whatever else you're doing and give them priority. What does culture teach us? Culture and society says we'll bury them when it's convenient. Let us do everything else that we need to and take care of ourselves. Islam puts a trial, Allah puts a trial on us of losing that loved one, that what am I preferring? What am I doing? Am I thinking about myself? Or am I thinking about the one who I've lost? If my thought process about the one who I've lost, then now I'm facing that calamity Allah puts on me and prioritizing Allah over myself. And I'm earning that reward of losing that one that I cared about. But if in that moment, my priority, my actions are about me being comforted, me being okay with this, I've lost Allah in this process. I've lost Allah in the focus, and this is where shaitan attacks. This entire phase is a description of saying that how do we face that calamity? What is the priority in that calamity? What are we thinking about? And to assist us in that is why Allah structured it in such a way. Think about it. Whether we talk about the ghusl, whether we talk about the kafan, we talk about the tahneed, we talk about the kabristan, we talk about the dafan, we talk about the grave, any of this, there's no consideration given to the living. Nothing is about my convenience. To the extent where even the conversation when it comes to, and this is a difficult conversation, but it's important to explain. It's always recommended to visit the grave of the deceased, except for one time where women, it's not mustahab anymore for them to visit the grave. That's the day and the time of burial. When you go to the grave to bury someone, it's makruh to cry at that location when you're burying them. It's makruh to talk about anything when you're burying them. Why? Because my focal point is the person who is deceased is about to go through one of the most difficult moments in their entire existence. Our Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would describe and explain there's nothing more difficult on a believer than that first night of death, at that separation, at that difficulty. That one moment when you're buried is the most important moment in your entire existence. If you notice, when we talk about the day of judgment, and we talk about what will Allah ask us on the day of judgment, everything is about your a'mal. Imam Sadiq would explain and he would say, أول ما سئل بي يوم القيامة الصلاة فإن قبلت قبلت ما سواها وإن ردت ردت ما سواها. The first thing you'll be asked about is your prayers on the day of judgment. If they are accepted, everything else will be accepted. If they're refused, everything else will be refused. What about my tawheed? What about my prophet? My religion? None of that's asked about on the day of judgment. Why? Because it's determined the day that you die. Allah has a filing system. The filing system begins the day that you die. And that filing system determines who is your imam, what is your religion, what is your book, what did you believe in your life, what was your qibla. Based upon those answers is where you'll be raised on the day of judgment, and then all you answer on the day of judgment is about the actions that you fulfilled based upon the belief that you already established. Now, the importance of that means that at the moment when I'm in the graveyard burying that person, the most important thing is to make sure that that person answers all these questions correctly, and which is why we even have the process of talqeen, tulaqqin an-nas, to remind them that now is when you're going to make all the decisions that are going to impact you on the day of judgment, make them correctly. Understanding that importance of what this person is going through and needing to remind them and the difficulty of the changes that they're going through is why Islam said, don't let the women come to the graveyard. Why? Because if it's a difficulty on them, then they may distract the deceased from answering these questions. Don't have useless conversations at the graveyard when you're burying someone. Why? Because they can be a distraction for the deceased from being able to answer these questions correctly. Don't cry when you're burying someone. Don't make loud noises in that location. Why? Imagine that loved one who is being separated from his family. To see his family in that state of difficulty, he may prefer to think of them rather than think of the challenge in front of him. So which is why all these ahkam that we perform when someone leaves us, it's a test for us. That I'm alive and I can see the conflict I'm going through and the difficulty I'm going through. But can I ignore that and believe that this is a test from Allah and prefer the responsibility that He gave me? If I can accomplish that, then I'm rewarded for going through this trial, and I've facilitated the process of this person passing on. The ahkam that Allah has explained for us, the rules that He has explained for us, every single one has depth and meaning to it. And every single one, Allah says that as I wrote it for you and I have planned each of these masa'ib and difficulties, it is so that you can succeed and attain a great reward. But sometimes the greatest difficulty has less to do with what I'm going through and what my loved ones go through. And facing that difficulty of seeing my loved ones in a difficulty is sometimes the most frustrating and challenging item that Allah can put to us. Which is why the reward for it can be great as well. When Allah mentions all the difficulties you'll face in life, the last He mentioned is وَالثَّمَرَاتِ. From amongst your children you will be tested. Why? Maybe I can withstand fear, I can withstand hunger, loss of wealth, even sickness in myself, I can be patient through. But it's so hard to see the one that I sacrificed myself for him to leave me. There is no greater comfort for us than the fact that Allah took His Ahlul Bayt and gave them these trials as well. When we talk about the masa'ib of Aba Abdullah, there's a description that says when he sends this Akbar into the battlefield, he turns to Umar Sa'd and he says, "Oh Umar Sa'd, you are killing my lineage. Have you no shame?" They describe and say that Aba Abdullah, from crying over his son, held his beard to the heavens and called out, "Oh Allah, they cut my lineage, cut theirs." The Shahadat of Ali al-Akbar, there's a moment in it that our teachers describe as being very difficult, where they say that the moment of what happens at the death of Ali al-Akbar is something recorded by the Mu'arrikheen very specifically. And they describe and they say that when Ali al-Akbar gives his final call, which is that son, realizing the difficulty on his father of this challenge, calls out, "Alayka minni salam abata." My salam on you, O father, such a salam that there is no jawab for, that you don't need to reply to me, O father, I am leaving you. There is one narration that says Aba Abdullah runs into the battlefield after hearing the call of his son. Sayyidah Zainab looks to Imam Hussain and she calls out, "Oh brother, you run to the left of the field, but Ali calls you from the right of the field." Abu Abdullah replies, he says, "Oh sister, don't find fault with me. I've lost the light of my eyes. I don't know where to go." In this, there is a description that says that we know exactly what Abu Abdullah does when he reaches Ali al-Akbar. One of my teachers would describe, he says, "How do we know exactly what happens in this moment?" He says the reason we know this is that the army of Umar Sa'd had encircled the body of Akbar and waited for Imam Hussain to reach his body. He says the description is so specific that it says that the soldiers of Umar Sa'd stood in their saddles to look down upon the body of Akbar on the field of Karbala. They said, why would they do such an action? Why is this so well known? And the description comes, they wanted to see how does an old man bid farewell to his grown son in his final moments. This is why they describe and they say, we know exactly what he did. When he comes upon this son, some even argue and say he did not walk to this child, but by the time he reaches Akbar, he is crawling on his knees. He reaches this child, and when his life has left his body, Abu Abdullah reaches down and touches his cheek to the cheek of his son. They write and say that we saw him after this, Hussain, lay on the sand of Karbala, picked up the body of his son, hugged it to his chest, and we thought in this moment he did not move anymore. We thought the grief of losing a son like Akbar was so much that Hussain ibn Ali had died in the field of Karbala, hugging his son to his chest in that moment. In this moment they describe and they say that it was the call of his sister, "Oh Hussain, Zainab has come to your assistance in this moment," that roused the Imam from the earth, and he said, "Oh Zainab, Hussain still lives. Why have you left the tent?" The ghira of Abu Abdullah was what forced him to overcome his grief. He says, "Oh sister, return. Hussain, your protector remains alive. Why did you come? She replies, says, brother, the loss of one like Akbar is so hard. I was worried that could you live through the experience of losing such a son. Imam Hussain stands up from his position. He says, oh sister, return. Hussain will continue his trial. Hussain is patient through these difficulties. But the Mu'arrikheen write two statements. They write either some say that Abu Abdullah tried 50 times to lift this body of Akbar, but it would fall from his hands. You would say that he lifted all of these shuhada. Why could he not lift one more? The other Mu'arrikh call and they say that Hussain ibn Ali called out, oh Banu Hashim, come and collect this child, come and collect your brother and return him. If we pair between these two, Hussain ibn Ali tried to honor his son the way he honored every other shaheed. But the weight of carrying your own son is so heavy that it was a weight that Hussain ibn Ali himself could not complete, such that eventually he gave up and he said, I am in need of assistance in this difficulty. Is there one to assist me in this difficulty? And this is where the Banu Hashim came. Such was the difficulty of losing a grown son. But the difficulty of losing an innocent son was even harder on Hussain ibn Ali. Remember that after this moment is when he stood in Karbala with Asghar in his arms. Akbar knew the sacrifice he presented. Asghar was the innocent who didn't know what he was presenting. Imagine that child who was innocent convulsing in the arms of his father, where they describe when the arrow pierces the neck of this child, he convulses in the arms of his father in his final moments. It is Abu Abdullah who has to comfort this child and say, oh Asghar, but a moment your grandfather waits for you with water. Oh Asghar, they kill you as an innocent. What am I to do with this? ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره ندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم with tears in our eyes 10 times. Ya Allah, 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 Ya Mahmud بحق محمد, Ya A'la بحق علي, Ya فاطر السماوات بحق فاطمة, Ya محسن بحق الحسن, Ya قديم الأحسان بحق الحسين. Oh Allah, give the thawab of this majlis to Marhoom Mohsin Sheikh, Ibn Asif Sheikh, and all of our marhoomin. Oh Allah, forgive all of the past and present difficulties on this community, this family, and all of our marhoomin. Ya Allah, raise the status of this marhoom and all of our marhoomin. Ya Allah, give us tawfiq to receive the wasila and the intercession of Ahlul Bayt. Ya Allah, give us patience in the masa'ib and difficulty that we face in this world. Oh Allah, increase the reward that we receive for going through these difficulties in this world. Ya Allah, remove all of our difficulties through the dhuhur of the Imam of our time. Ya Allah, hasten his reappearance to us quickly. Oh Allah, keep us and our families and our lineage on the upright religion of Islam and the service of Ahlul Bayt. And entitle us in this world the ziyarat of Imam Hussain, and in the hereafter the shafa of Imam Hussain. For the soul of the marhoom, our marhoomin, and all of the mu'mineen who are in need of dua, 1 time Surah Fatiha, 3 times Surah Ikhlas, with your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله وخاتم النبيين، السلام عليك أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا أبا محمد حسن بن علي المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين الشهيد بكربلاء، السلام عليكم 9 معصومين من ذرية الحسين، علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، ومحمد بن علي باقر علم النبيين، وجعفر بن محمد الصادق، وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم، وعلي بن موسى الرضا، ومحمد بن علي الجواد، وعلي بن محمد الهادي، والحسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن، يا صاحب العصر والزمان، عجل الله تعالى فرجك، وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك، وجعلنا من أعوانك والأنصارك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله